Hello, and welcome to the launch of PiPA Foundations. PiPA Foundations is our bite-sized introductory programme to support you taking your first steps, creating a more inclusive workplace for parents and carers. My name is Lindsey Alvis. I'm one of 3 development and relationship managers here at PiPA. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a white woman in my late 30s with blonde hair wearing a black and white stripy top. So just for a bit of housekeeping, first of all, today's session, as you know, is in Zoom as a public webinar. Closed captioning is provided by the integrated function on Zoom. So to enable captions, please select the option on your Zoom now. Please be aware that the session is being recorded for future use. So we have turned off your microphones and videos to support that. However, the chat function is open today and in operation. We're not holding a Q&A because we're full of content from our brilliant speakers, but we will try to address any questions you add in the chat now or over email after the session. So do get in touch with us. You can also get in touch via our email address, which is programs@PiPA-campaign, and my colleague is going to post that in the chat for you now as well. So on to today's session. We have 4 brilliant guest speakers here today, as well as our creative director, Ehnold-Danailov. We are joined by Vanessa Boyd, Interim Head of Dance at Creative Scotland, Kelly Parish, Senior Manager Diversity at Arts Council England, Balbir Singh, Artistic Director of the Balbir Singh Dance Company, and Kenny McGlashan, CEO of Youth Theatre Arts Scotland. To give you a brief overview of today's session, in a moment I'm going to hand over to Anna, who will tell you a little bit more about PiPA. Then we will hand over to our funders to hear more about key priorities and investment principles from them. Anna will then share a brief update and overview on PiPA Foundations, our brilliant new programme, and how that works and can support you taking your first steps. And then we will hear from Kenny, CEO of Youth Theatre Arts Scotland, and Balbir, Artistic Director of Balbir Singh Dance Company. Both organisations have partnered with PiPA, and so it's a really brilliant opportunity to hear more about how they have put their learning into practice. Just a note from us, we have organisations and individuals here for both England and Scotland, so I know our speakers will be really mindful when they're sharing information with you, so that you can follow that regardless of which funding agreements you're used to working with. That's everything from me to start the session. I'm going to now hand over to Anna.
Thank you, Lindsey, and hello, everyone. As Lindsey said, my name is Anna Ehnold-Danailov. I am the Joint CEO and Creative Director of PiPA. I'm a white woman in her 40s with dark hair. I'm wearing glasses, and I'm wearing a red and black spotted shirt and a black jacket on top. So just briefly, for those of you who don't know PiPA, our charity supports performing arts organisations across the UK to implement effective strategies to ensure that they're able to attract and retain a diverse and flexible workforce that is inclusive of parents and carers. We conduct research, we address disadvantages, we lobby for change, and then we map out practical ways of working, because we believe that a truly world-class performing arts is inclusive of all talents and circumstances. So when we set up over 7 years ago, there was no data on the parents and carer workforce in the performing arts, nor was there much of an understanding of how organisations could support those with caring responsibilities in a sustainable and effective way. It felt pretty much like caring responsibilities were invisible. So our research that we conducted since then has consistently highlighted that parents and carers struggle to continue their careers. The way we work in music, dance, opera, or theatre often feels quite incompatible with the caring demands. Our data has shown that parents and carers regularly select out-of-work opportunities because of the lack of inclusive policies and work practices. Many have to change job roles or leave the sector altogether because they cannot see how to make work work. The research had shown that the performing arts is losing diverse talent by basically not having supportive strategies and structures in place. Now, we have to remember that caring responsibilities cut across all protected characteristics and is therefore an essential part of the wider equality, diversity and inclusion work. And because many of the policies and practices that we advocate for have actually got a wider benefit, especially to other underrepresented groups. So therefore, we've developed 2 support programs to help performing arts companies to embed supportive strategies to become more inclusive and accessible for those with caring responsibilities. By supporting organizations to identify gaps in their provision and providing practical tools and learning resources like sample policies, how-to guides, templates, case studies, we help equip organizations to attract and retain diverse talent and then therefore become more business resilient. Since the beginning of this year, we are an Arts Council England Investment Principal Support Organisation, or short an IPSO, and we are also funded by Creative Scotland. Our aim is to support as many performing arts organisations as possible through our programmes to help them embed best practice to become more inclusive workplaces. We are already working with over 70 organisations from across the UK as part of the Charter programme, which is our flagship programme, which is a deep dive monitoring evaluation framework. But as we understood the need for a more light touch programme to enable organisations to take their first step and provide them with selected tools, we developed PiPA Foundations, which we piloted last year with 18 performing arts organisations, which was funded by Creative Scotland. So before I talk a little bit more about what PiPA Foundations is and how it works, I'm delighted to be able to hand you over to our first speaker, Vanessa Boyd, Interim Head of Dance at Creative Scotland. Vanessa, it would be great to hear a bit more about how supporting those with caring responsibilities aligns with some of Creative Scotland's funding criteria. Over to you.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks to Anna and the PiPA team for inviting me to today's session. It's really great to be here and have an opportunity to hear more about the work they do and the Foundations programme. As Anna said, my name is Vanessa Boyd and I'm the Interim Head of Dance at Creative Scotland. I'm a white woman in my 30s with short brown hair, black glasses and a suitably autumnal brown jumper. So I'd like to talk a little bit about why initiatives such as PiPA's Foundations programme and policies and working practices that deeply consider the needs of parents and carers in the performing arts are important to us, and why they're important to the work that we do and support, and why, as an organisation, you might find it useful. With that in mind, I think it's helpful to zoom out a little bit to consider our role and responsibility as the national body that supports the arts, screen and creative industries in Scotland. So our strategic framework sets out what we want to see, how we will do this, what we'll commit to and what we'll prioritise. So at the heart of all the work that we want to see, it's that people and organisations working in art and creativity are supported to make work of quality and ambition that enriches life in Scotland for everyone. We want to see that more people from all parts of society across Scotland can access, participate in and value a range of artistic and creative activities, and that art and creativity are recognised by people at home in Scotland, but also abroad. That trickles down to not only the cultural work and activity that takes place, but the employment and management policies and procedures that underpin that work, and that are really vital in enabling a diverse workforce and a diversity of the stories and the voices that are being heard. We seek to achieve this through the funding that we provide, the developmental support that we offer, and by recognising where gaps exist and how working in targeted ways can help to address this. From an applicant's perspective, if you're applying to Creative Scotland for funding, we'll ask you to consider 6 criteria. So these criteria reflect our strategic priorities and what we want to see happen in the culture and creative sector in Scotland as a result. These criteria are equality and ambition, engagement, equality, diversity and inclusion, environmental sustainability, fair work, and international. And in any of the work that we do or support in the sector, we're always thinking about how it can address those priorities. And of course, given the breadth of activity, the breadth of organisations that we do support, there will be a wide variety in the extent to which these priorities can be met. And there's always room for new learning and improved ways of working. It's fair to say that the Foundations programme and the work that PiPA undertakes particularly speaks to our priorities of EDI and fair work. And if these are two areas that you as an organisation are looking to develop your knowledge in, or understand how you can create or improve policies, practices, then the tools and training available through the Foundations programme can be a really sensible resource to consider. Whilst totally recognising the range and size and capacity of different organisations, initiatives like the Foundations programme can be really helpful in providing you with the support and the stepping stones to help you on the way to build around that work that you want to do. So I'm going to leave it there, but I will put my contact details in the chat. So if anyone wants to get in touch with me directly after today, I'd be very happy to have a further conversation. So I'll hand back over to Anna.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. I think that's really important to hear, because I think as an organization really trying to change the way we work and how it affects sort of the workplace when you embed the right policies is really key. It just sort of highlights again the embedding of policies, how it could contributes to the wider call to make workplaces in the arts more inclusive and accessible. So thank you very much. I know that unfortunately you have to leave us a bit earlier today, so I'm going to use this opportunity now to thank you again for joining us today. I will now hand you over to Kelly Parish, Senior Manager Diversity at Arts Council England. As I mentioned earlier, PiPA is an IPSO, an investment principal support organisation, and therefore part of the Arts Council's portfolio of regularly funded organisation, with our work particularly geared towards the investment principles of inclusion and relevance. Kelly, maybe you can share a bit more about how supporting the parent and carer workforce aligns with the Arts Council England's investment principle, which might, of course, be more interesting to some of the organisations who are NPOs or seeking project funds from Arts Council England. So over to you.
Thank you, Anna. Hi, everyone. My name's Kelly Parish. I'm a white woman in my very early 40s. I've got light pink hair that's long on one side, and I'm in a black t-shirt, and I look like I'm in a sauna, but this is actually our head office in Manchester. It's got lovely wood panelled walls. So as Anna said, I'm from Arts Council England, and I do the role of PiPA's relationship manager, so I kind of support them through their IPSO journey. I'm going to try my best not to use too many acronyms. We do love them at Arts Council, and I'll try my best to speak succinctly and keep to time, because once I start talking about this kind of thing, I can go on. So Anna, if I'm running over, do tell me to stop. So Anna sent me a few provocations to kind of think about and to sort of talk about how creating family-friendly and carer-friendly policies and practices is really crucial to Arts Council's investment principles. So I'll talk a little bit about what investment principles are for those who don't know. I won't spend too long on them, but specifically I'll talk about inclusivity and relevance, which is the investment principle that PiPA are helping us to embed in the sector. So from ACE's perspective, that's Arts Council England, already doing it, sorry. From Arts Council's perspective, the benefit of supporting parents and carers doesn't just benefit those people with caring responsibilities or families, but it's a benefit that's seen in the sector, like sector-wide. So it's a benefit that enhances the richness of the creative output of the whole sector. So Arts Council are 3 years into our 10-year strategy. That's called Let's Create. And that's a really inclusive, tangible strategy that focuses on supporting opportunities for everyone, for each and every one of us, to explore our own creativity if we want to, and to have the opportunities to experience culture and to be part of the cultural workforce and to be leaders in that workforce if we want to. So that's for, everybody, no exceptions. To achieve this change, we have what we call 4 investment principles. And they're, again, really tangible principles that help us respond to the challenges and barriers that could stop any one of us from reaching those aims. And as part of our national portfolio, Anna has mentioned that we have what we call investment principle support organisations, or IPSOs. So they're organisations that specifically work in one of these areas to help us get towards the change we want to see. So PiPA work to help us embed inclusivity and relevance. So I won't go into lots of detail about the other investment principles, but just for reference, they are ambition and quality, which is all about striving to improve the work that you do and to, to check in, evaluate and continuously improve that work and to not be static. We then have dynamism, which is the one that kind of throws everyone, but it's really about sort of development and innovation and being responsive to changes in the sector. And then environmental responsibility, which, kind of is self-explanatory, I suppose. When we were putting together a 10-year strategy in a climate crisis, it didn't feel responsible to not have an intervention in there and to try and encourage organisations to be part of solutions and not add to the issues. But it's inclusivity and relevance that I'll focus on. Like I said, this is the work that PiPA are supporting us to do in the sector. And there are, I think, I really want to talk here about, how family-friendly policies and carer-friendly policies are really kind of crucial to achieving the change that we want to see in the sector. So for this investment principle, it's kind of in 3 parts, and those parts are communities, workforce, and the creative case for diversity. So in terms of communities, when we talk about communities, we mean sort of any group of people that are bound, however loosely, by an affinity or a common interest or a place or a goal. So it doesn't have to be based around a particular protected characteristic. For some groups of people, that definitely is what sort of, binds them as a community. But I think in the broadest sense, we're talking about communities that are underserved or who have faced barriers or challenges in terms of the opportunities to participate or to continue in paid work or to advance their career. And really key here is sort of listening to those communities, so doing work with them, not at them, and sort of hearing the barriers that they face. So, you can really see this quite prominently in PiPA's work, I think. When we think about parents and carers, that's a huge community of people or networks of communities with lots of intersectionality in those communities. But it's kind of a slightly unseen community, I think. I think the business of being a parent in particular is so usual and so usualized that the idea of just getting on with it is so prevalent in our society. But there are so many barriers in sort of being a parent or carer in the performing arts, particularly in sort of thinking about touring and thinking about commitments to work. And they often go unseen without initiatives like PiPA's foundations. The next is workforce, which again, I think is really kind of prevalent in the work that PiPA do. We have an essential read on inclusivity and relevance on our website, but I just want to read a line from that. When talking about workforce, we say that we want the cultural sector to actively nurture inclusive organisational workplaces which value and develop the talent of all the people we work with, including freelancers and employees. So that's, valuing talent, all people, no exceptions. And again, you can see how parents and carers are often an unseen community within that workforce. The final strand is the creative case for diversity. So this term might seem familiar. We've been talking about it at Arts Council for years, but there's still work to do here, which is why it's still part of our strategy. And this is really about recognising that the need for change isn't and shouldn't be driven by the idea of doing the right thing and redressing a balance, because it's an altruistic thing to do. We want to create a more inclusive and relevant sector because it's diversity that makes it better. It makes the work richer. And the more voices are in the mix and the more stories and perspectives that are heard, then the creativity and cultural output of our sector is all the better. So when you think about the multitude of people in that community of parents and carers and the diversity amongst that group of people, then there's a whole lot of potential in there that shouldn't be forced out of the picture. So finally, just to say, all of our investment principles are important, but in talking about Arts Council funding, and particularly our project funding through project grants, at all levels, we expect applicants to respond to inclusivity and relevance and tell us how they're going to embed it in their work. It's part of the fabric of the programme. So if an applicant has identified a particular community they want to work with or, talks about workforce development, they really need to think about how they're going to make those opportunities inclusive and not set up barriers. And I think sometimes parents and carers are kind of, again, an unseen community within that. And if you're doing work with a great number of people, you really need to think about the barriers that they could face and how you could support them to overcome them. I'll stop talking because I think I've been going on for slightly more than 7 minutes, but I will leave it there. And again, I can put my details in the chat here. And if anybody wants to, I will happily talk to anybody about inclusivity and relevance at any hour of the day. So
thank you, Kelly. And thank you also for highlighting. I really heard that about the sometimes invisible side that caring responsibilities brings with it. We find that it can specifically be around carers as well. So, parents is one thing, but carers can become very quickly invisible because it's much harder to talk about. And I think what you just said really highlights that how embedding strategies to help widen your workforce participation in any area can actually affect different areas of your organization's work, be it, you know, on stage, or which communities you reach, or, you know, all of the different work. And for us, it's so important that we start taking a more holistic, intersectional approach to inclusion, to enable people to actually bring their best self to work, by creating workplaces that are actually able to accommodate the different needs that people might have and might bring. Well, thank you, Kelly. That was very good. Yes, your details will be great. I think if anybody has got any question, we can always go deeper at any point. I think at PiPA, we strongly believe that being proactive rather than reactive will strengthen organizations, and it will also affect or help affect create a wider change, making our industry more representative. I'll talk to you now more about PiPA Foundations and what it actually is, and yeah, what it contains basically. Ali, if we could share the slide number 3, that would be great. Just to kind of give people a little bit more of an overview. Thank you. So we understand that performing arts organizations have got competing priorities and often juggle different demands. And with foundations, we specifically wanted to develop an offer for smaller organizations with limited resources in any sector, be it dance, music, opera, theatre, who are looking for practical tools and resources to take their first steps to implement change. It is designed for organizations who are keen to improve their inclusion and diversity strategy, as we just heard from the funders, who are wishing to strengthen their business resilience, or who simply want to become more family-friendly employers, but just need some practical tools and resources to help them with taking their first steps. So PiPA Foundations is an online entry-level program that is divided in 5 modules. Once you sign up, you'll be able to log into the Foundations toolkit to work through each module at your own pace. We recommend that you work through the modules in order, as they're built on each other, but you can of course jump straight to the module that might be most pressing to you. Each module provides you with a pre-recorded seminar and also a downloadable workbook, which includes all the slides and information of the seminar, as well as practical tasks and resources for you to then use. And each workbook also has a roadmap tool at the end to help you capture your learning and then design from that your personalized action plan at the end of module 5. As part of every module, you will also receive key resources that you can download to help you implement some of the practices that are discussed in the seminar. And this includes sample policies to download, practical templates, checklists, analysis tools, etc. So to give you a bit more insight into what to expect, let's briefly look at each module and the area that it covers. So we'll start with module 1. Ali, if you could move us to, thank you. So module 1 is using data to inform strategy, and this module will highlight the need for data collection on your parent and carer workforce, and help you understand how this could inform your wider strategy. It will provide you with the understanding why you might need to capture this data, and of course how, by providing you with sample questions, as well as giving you real examples of how monitoring has informed insights in other organizations. Module 2 is building foundations for best practice. And this module highlights the importance of caring-related policies and will help you identify gaps in your parental and caring-related policy suite. Again, you'll also receive a checklist as well as actual sample policies to download that you can then adapt to your organization's need. Module 3, this is widening workforce participation, and that looks at inclusive working practices, specifically at advanced scheduling, flexible and remote working. So this module will help you understand more about the benefits of advanced scheduling and the areas it might affect, as well as provide you with a better understanding of the different models of flexible working, together with guidance to successfully implement flexible or remote working. Module 4 is welcoming new communities, and this module looks at inclusive recruitment practices and highlights the importance of effective communication. It will provide you with key tools to improve your internal and external communication, which is key to attracting and retaining parents and carers, and you'll hear loads about how important communication is. And last but not least, module 5, taking learning forward. This is the final module, which encourages you to bring all your learning together and create an action plan that you can then potentially share with your senior leadership team to ensure that the actual embedding of the inclusive policies and practices that you will have identified for your organization throughout the programs. So, as I said, the program is online and it is designed to be bite-sized. So you can determine at your own pace and also access or revisit the resources and tools when you need them. The price for taking part in foundations is £350 per year for an organisation with an annual turnover of under 1 million. We do have further subsidies available, particularly for organisations that are already leading work in the diversity field or that are based in levelling up for culture places. So please just get in touch with us to see how we can help you if affordability is a barrier. Now, I feel I spoke a lot. I think that's enough from me. I'm delighted to have with us here today Kenny McGlashan, Chief Executive of Youth Theatre Arts Scotland, who actually took part in the Foundations pilot last year. And Kenny therefore has first-hand experience of completing PiPA Foundations and using all the resources and tools I just spoke about. So Kenny, could you share a little bit more about maybe why you joined Foundations and how it might have impacted Youth Theatre Arts Scotland?
Yeah, thanks, Anna, and all your PiPA colleagues for inviting us along today. My name's Kenny McGlashan. My pronouns are he, him, and I work for Youth Theatre Arts Scotland, which I'll introduce a little bit about in a second. But I am a white man, very firmly in his 40s, and I have got black glasses and slightly black spiky hair and a black shirt on, so I'm very colourful for this time of year. Yeah, so just to give a little bit of introduction to Youth Theatre Arts Scotland, I'll not talk too much about us, but because we can share the website information about our organisation, you can find out more about us. But just to give a little bit of context of who we are in terms of the taking part in the Foundation's work. So we are one of the Creative Scotland's currently regularly funded organisations, and we are the development organisation for Scotland's youth theatres. So we have a membership of over 100 youth theatres and professionals who work in the youth theatre sector across the country. And we also support a wider network of youth theatres who haven't signed up as members, but come along to lots of our training and events. And throughout the year, what we do is a range of sector support, development activities, festivals, training. We provide a lot of resources to help organisations run and improve and develop their practice. We do a range of projects nationally and internationally and so on. As I say, if you want to find out more about our work, you can have a look at the website. But I suppose our real connection and engagement with PiPA always kind of stemmed from the fact that our sector has a lot of people with families and caring responsibilities, whether they be adults, young people, adults, partners with health needs, or also even people with additional support needs as well. And that's quite common throughout our sector, even though actually we're not talking a lot of the time about professional production. So through the PiPA sort of work that we've done over the years of engagement, we've always found that some of the stuff that's really been relevant for organisations has been really relevant to us. And we're also mindful of the fact that, you know, our sector has a lot of carers in it, and also that often the youth sector is the entrance way for a lot of workers into other professional arts sectors, including theatre, but a lot of other industries. So helping them to understand and experience good practices from that stage it feels quite key. And I think that the other thing I just wanted to mention before I kind of talk a little bit about our entry into the foundations and what we got from it was just maybe to give you a bit of a picture of the scale of our organisation. So we're our turnover is just under 300k, and although we're a national organisation, we do a lot of national development work. We only have 8 members of staff, and only half of them are full time. So in ourselves, flexible working and supporting in our own team. Our own caring responsibilities. I'm a parent, several parents in the team, people looking after elderly parents as well as children with additional needs, and also family members with health conditions. So there's that it's embedded in our kind of core team, but we're mindful of the way that by doing any of this work, it can impact a wider sector. So we do this approach of getting our own house in order, getting our own policies and practices in a good place, and then we share that out with our member youth theatres and also even our partners and so on. And that's an approach that we've taken to sector development, company development, going all the way through. So we kind of want to be representing best practice, but then also sharing that as well. So coming into the foundations work, we had already done some work even pre-pandemic on things like our company handbook and our policies, and we felt in quite a good place about a lot of elements. And even my part-time general manager, Helen, had done a lot of work on making sure that actually we were embedding some really good working practices together as a team. When COVID came about, there was new elements to that came in. We started things like a wellbeing questionnaire because we had all moved to home working and we stayed home working. We also added in other kind of practices. We had kind of established a bit of a coaching culture in the way that we managed the team, but we just started to formalize these things. So the foundation program came at quite a good time for us because it was us. We were aware that we had kind of made a lot of changes. We had some good practices, but we looked at it as the opportunity to have a light touch kind of review of our kind of structures in the different areas. So that's kind of when we had kind of come into it. We took part in the pilot and went through the kind of different modules, and what I'll talk about is just a little bit some of the things that we really took from that, and also how we used that and the kind of longer term impact that it's had. I'll not talk about all the different modules, but particularly when I kind of took part or viewed the recordings, I would kind of look at the resources, the information first, have a kind of review through it so I could pick out what was kind of I felt might be most useful. I had questions about, watched or kind of took part in that kind of presentation, and then we'd go back to the resources and kind of note down. And even just in my notebook, I noted down the kind of key areas. So in module 1, I think that actually it was a bit of a kind of change for us to thinking about the data gathering, how that monitoring bit could really inform. And we were doing some of the things, like we had a staff information form, we were doing a questionnaire, we were doing exit interviews, but we weren't including some of these questions in it. And the data wasn't therefore informing our kind of approach to that. And actually it was really some pretty simple tweaks to those things just to help us to understand what carers and what their contexts were, and how we could then have a bit more of an open discussion about it. And the feedback from our staff was great around all of those things. Similarly, in module 2, the two areas that we really ended up tweaking was we were able to look at our company handbook and policies and look at it against the checklists. And also we ended up making a few tweaks to our recruitment processes, and we put some additional supports in there, but also had a bit more of a think about the accessibility of that. In terms of we now provide a kind of bursary which can be used for childcare and things like that for people who are involved in recruitment. Module 3 we actually identified a few things which were a bit more longer term. They weren't kind of quick changes or so on, but developments to the freelancers and contractors we use, and how we can improve the kind of supports and processes for them, not our core employees, but our kind of freelance contractors, but then also the freelancers in our sector. There's a large freelance workforce in the youth theatre sector. So again, both of that bits of work, we started to define that, and that's carried into kind of longer term sort of strategic work. And there was benefits in the other modules as well. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of maybe flag up that how we used it as well, we found quite useful. We used some of the action planning module at the end, but actually what we had done throughout it was able to kind of note down the things that we felt were really relevant to us. And I was, as the full-time member of staff that attended, then passed that on to my general manager, who's part-time and wasn't able to attend or take part in all of the elements. Now, with it being all online, it would be easier for her to kind of dip in and out with that. Our training was recorded or so on, but I was able to then use the modules and reference and hyperlink back to saying, here are the kind of 4 or 5 different things I think we could quickly do. Here's an interesting bit. And she was then also able to go in and review the resources as well. So it really felt we were able to align it into our own plans and changes. It didn't feel like it was just a program that you got on and off of, but you could feed it into other areas. So I suppose, yeah, just final reflections are that, like Vanessa mentioned earlier, it does have a kind of connection across different areas. We definitely have found that the links with EDI and Fair Work, which is our topics that through Creative Scotland, we continue to be very committed to and actually have action plans developing in these areas. And we're already kind of ahead of the curve with some of that because of the work that we've had and we've been able to access these resources. And I think also, now we've been able to have a bit more confidence of where we already are, what we already have in place and what we've started. That then motivated us to then sign up to the charter, which is a different level of undertaking, but it feels like we've already got a bit of momentum going. So we were kind of more confident in that. I think that's probably enough from me now, but as all the other speakers have said, if anybody from Scotland or our friends in England or across the UK are interested in our experience or drawing on that, then more than happy to get in touch. You can get in touch through the website and my contact details are on there.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Kenny. That was brilliant. It's really lovely to hear how an organisation has taken the programme, engaged in that work, and then what changes they've been able to implement because of it. Fantastic. Well, I'm really pleased to report to all our speakers we're doing really well for time. So just to reassure you, we've done great so far. We've just got a couple more sections left to cover with you. So as you've heard, PiPA programmes support you to be able to deliver yours and your funders' priorities, delivering tangible change for your parent and carer workforce. PiPA takes an intersectional approach to inclusion and diversity, and many of the policies and practices like flexible working, for example, can have benefits to all to wider team members, not just the parents and carers in your workforce. We wanted to take a moment to say we understand that these are sort of really challenging times as well, and that organisations we know are under financial pressure and have very broad remits. One of the things that's really important to PiPA programmes is that they are designed to celebrate what you are doing and support you taking your next steps to the future. Our intention is not to overwhelm you, and it's a lot about finding focus and finding what your priorities are and how you move forward in those. It's not about making you feel like you're not doing enough. This is about finding some focus for some positive action that will take you forward to the sort of future you want to see in your workplaces. We also understand that many smaller organisations don't have HR departments in place. And often don't know where to start in terms of building up these infrastructures. So as we've sort of heard already, PiPA Foundations can support you taking your first steps using the key tools and resources that it has to offer. It's a great tool for you as managers as well. If you want to build skills and expertise within your team, Kenny gave a really great example there about how he shared that with a member of his staff. But also if it's that you need somebody in your team to sort of go away and spend some time learning and training, PiPA Foundations could really support that. And it's also a training sort of opportunity that can go at their own pace, you know, alongside priorities and workloads. So you're not going to miss one session and therefore need to catch up or whatever. You can do it in your own time. It really is about you moving through that. And as Anna pointed out, you can also, if there's something in there that you really actually, I need to skip to that module because it's where I need to be right now, then absolutely you can do that. And Kenny also noted you can go back to things as well. So it really is a great program from that point of view. It gives you greater confidence and knowledge about the challenges facing parents and carers and how to address them. And we just wanted to sort of talk to you about some of the impacts that come from the programme, and that's an increased awareness of the value of key family-friendly policies and practices, and identifying gaps in provision with a practical understanding of the business value of flexible working models. It can create a deeper understanding of how to attract and retain talent from a broad backgrounds and circumstances through family working, and an increased ability to develop practical strategies and resources to become more family-friendly. And the other thing that the programmes are really brilliant for is in terms of advocacy and change, finding answers to the issues you're facing and sharing those across our network, whether that's speaking at a PiPA event like this, or coming to one of our kind of networking sessions, or contributing to a pilot or case study that's then shared across the network. It's really an opportunity for those in our sector to kind of lead as well, and to be part of creating that change they want to see. So with that, all that in mind, I'm really pleased now to pass over to Balbir, who will talk to us a bit about his experience working with PiPA programmes.
Great, lovely. Thank you very much. Balbir Singh. I'm wearing a lime green top, a British Indian, early 50s, and I'm sat on a pink chair as well, just to brighten up the day. It's wonderful to be able to present at such an important and invaluable resource for the arts sector as a maker of work, which is indispensable for me. So Balbir Singh Dance Company is an Arts Council England national portfolio organisation based at Yorkshire Dance in Leeds. We got a significant uplift this last round in terms of sector development as a sector leader with what we're doing. So I will talk a little bit about that and the role of PiPA to help inform some of that practice and thinking as well. We have different entry points, journeys of travel, and exit points for artists we work with. This comes through not having a number of strands of work. We have a strand celebrating age, working with artists in their 70s, sport and art, bringing together synchronized swimming, ice skating, rugby, BMX, and most recently cricket with art. And then we have classical revisited, modernizing classical Indian dance. And then we have appetite for dance, presenting in libraries, museums, galleries in different spaces, and most recently a new strand, blue-green environmental as such. So we're very rich with the type of work we make, where that work is made, the type of artists we need to make that work, and the viewpoint and the perspective, and also the audiences that is presented to, which opens up so much more opportunity for how and what we create and the inspirations for that. So we have had children and young people in the studio prior to finding out about and engaging with PiPA. But what PiPA did for the work that we do was it gave us confidence to know that there is this organization out there that people can be signposted to, that has the resources and the understanding and the sympathy and the thinking to be able to promote and provide guidance and advice. So it was great to come on board as a charter partner member to understand what this organization was about. We sometimes fumble around in the dark as an arts organization, we having care and duty to support people with children as such, but we didn't quite know how to consolidate that or speak with confidence about what that journey and process is. And through the conversations and the relationship with PiPA, we understood a lot more about the wider issues and actually what we were doing to find a more appropriate vocabulary to communicate with those people with child caring or parent elderly responsibilities as such, and how we could be more informed in our practice to engage and signpost, as well as bring to the table maybe less engaged or less confident, diverse communities that would want to consider talking about issues that they have around culturally in terms of children and childcare responsibilities and the male-female dynamic of parental responsibilities sometimes. And so for us, it was great where we were able to begin to understand and pick up on toolkits and resources and interact with PiPA on the ground with hosting events, having face-to-face conversations, being part of a wider structure. So that has massively informed what we do, and where it has taken us also is with confidence think about how do we bring in parents and their children into performance work, having said we have so many routes into and out of the work as such, rather than just providing support as such. And so that thinking was triggered about the approach PiPA take, and how could we take a creative responsibility as being part of the solution. So a number of productions now have featured parents and their children, as opposed to trying to find childcare. It's encouraging them well, is the scope and opportunity to bring into the work. So the Forever Flower is celebrating age working with older performers in the 70s, which is about the female menopause and 3 generations of child, mother and grandmother as one example of work. We worked with ice skaters whose children also are ice skate, as well as swimmers that ice skate as well. And we've encourage children to be part of the creative process in the studio, because it's very humbling and settles all the artists and gets rid of ego, and you see the world through the eyes of young people as just a different perspective on life. And I think having children, one has a different perspective on life anyway, with how one relates to the world as such. So those are key things. Also, sometimes as a sector leader, I've been able to have conversations male to male in terms of childcare issues or the parental responsibilities or access as such. And so that has been key within the whole framework as well, to be open to that. And what I've got from it, and including this event, is networking and profiling and communication skills to be able to articulate with confidence as a sector leader, to have these opportunities to learn from and present and fine-tune the craft of presentation a little bit to make sure it's specific and fit for purpose, and hopefully inspiring, and also for individuals that would be less confident to want to open up to have a conversation about having scheduling issues or childcare responsibilities, to be warm and welcoming. We've since gone on to have a budget line for childcare and access costs, which is central to our work. And we proactively approach individuals with that offer. And most recently, Cricket Green was a large-scale outdoor production, which had a number of artists involved in it, with support for childcare costs that was given to them, straightforward, saying, this is the budget, please do engage with the project howsoever you can. We also have confidently gained in thinking, how can we involve people where they can't be in the studio? So we've live streamed rehearsals and also created filmed material that they can access afterwards, rather than you have to be here at this time to be able to part of the process and the performance. And we also can adapt the work in terms of availability. So if someone can only do 2 or 3 performances, then that's fine. We can alter the work and modify it slightly if they're not able to do all the work, rather than, unless you can do all the performances, you're not able to engage. So these are examples practically of how we work as such. And I think for us as an arts organization, is retaining and having the talent in the sector and not losing that talent as such, and how it's vital to hold on to that, and what we can do as our responsibility to keep people in the sector and draw upon ways of them confidently saying, look, this is how we can support you. Do be confident in having similar conversations with other organizations as freelancers, because they are a wealth of talent, and especially artists from diverse communities as such, who can sometimes come across as very apologetic on not being able to articulate confidently, or feel that they're not in a position to do so. So part of it is giving them the confidence, say, look, this is how we function and operate. Think about these things in practice. There is PiPA as this organization. This is wealth of talent and resources. Having presented a podcast as well, and the profiling of that profiles the work that we do as an arts organization as well. We've learned to think about when artists are in the studio or someone comes for a meeting, what can we do to allow the young guests to be entertained? What are the toys or the crayons or the activities that we need to have on hand for them as well, rather than have them quietly sat in a corner? How do we entertain them and engage them and have that sympathy and the responsibility we take on in that way? I think with also the work that we create, it allows audiences to engage in terms of children and adults. There are carers and artists in terms of working collaboratively in outdoor spaces, and how we look at the environment and connections with environment. So, for example, how especially young mothers and children, we did some activity where they were looking at nature through phones and photography and the digital, and the young children were guiding the mothers with that activity. So it's nice to see how we cross that over, and that came from exploring with artists with children to explore some of those ideas. How as an audience could we get parents and carers to interact, and what can we do where we can test out some of these ideas. So can you bring your young child into the rehearsal space, or if you're looking after an elderly family member, can you go and have a conversation or bring them into the mix? So that work informs the testing and trialing and presentation of that work for an audience. And so it's good that otherwise we just do it, and this whole PiPA focus allows us to think about that as a particular direction of travel, and what that is as a way of thinking creatively in terms of the sector, but also in terms of health and well-being, and just the richness of talent and creativity that we have out there. So it's wonderful to present work and connect with different people in different ways. I think, to conclude, the work that we have done with PiPA on various levels has really opened our eyes to the importance of us as an arts organisation, as an MP, on the responsibility in a proactive way. We have to be part of the solution, and knowing that a lot of this thinking came from PiPA, and they are there to have conversations as and when we shape ideas, get forward with thinking, the strategic thinking, hopefully to inform and influence policy at the higher levels, as well as the work in itself on the ground, and how it is received as a cyclical relationship with the artists, with the children, with the elderly, in a holistic way of thinking about our role in society as artists and creatives. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's really lovely to hear how this is not only informing the way you're working and your working practices sort of behind the scenes in creating the work, but it's also starting to have a real direct impact on the work itself. It's very, very lovely and rewarding to hear. So thank you for sharing that with us. Brilliant. Well, we're doing really well for time. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions. It's been fantastic to hear from you. On behalf of PiPA and all our speakers, we'd like to thank you for coming today and for listening to what we had to share. I'm sure you'll agree it's been a really helpful and informative session. Following this webinar, we'll send you an email with information about how to sign up to PiPA Foundations if you're interested. You can also get in touch, like Anna said, if you just want to have a conversation or affordability is a barrier, please do reach out to us. This is the start of that conversation with you. And it's really great to have had you here, but do get in touch with us if you want to talk further. I'm sure Lucy will put it in the chat, but you can contact us on our email, Progamme, at pipacampaign.com. You'll find all the information about PiPA Foundations on our website, so please do have a look on there if you haven't already, and read a little bit more about what there is on offer. We'll share a link to this recording in due course, in case you want to pass it on to other people you're working with, members of your boards or your wider team, so that they can sort of hear what's been shared today as well. And we're also really pleased to let you know that those who sign up to PiPA Foundations by early January will be given an additional live event to complement Module 1, which is all about data. We've heard how important data is in today's session, and I know that it's so important to our funders and to all of you in terms of running your organisations. So it's a brilliant opportunity for you to get some additional content to help bring that module to life. The event will take place at the end of January, and like I say, if you join up by mid-January, that's a one-off extra special offer that we have for you. And that's everything from me, so I'd just like to say thank you for coming, and I'll just pass over to Anna to close the session.
Thank you very much from me as well. Thank you, Lindsey. And obviously, thank you to our speakers, Vanessa, Kelly, Kenny, and Balbir. I really appreciate you taking the time and talking from your perspectives of how the work we do and how supporting parents and carers can really change the sector, change the way we work, influence the wider inclusion and diversity discourse in the arts, and most importantly, how it has affected your work, which is always fantastic to hear. So thank you everyone for coming. If you have any questions, as Lindsey said, get in touch with us, and we hope to see you all very soon. So take care and see you soon. Bye.